He spent years caring for the little creek behind his home, trimming weeds, clearing branches, keeping the water flowing, until one day the HOA decided it didn't fit their vision of perfection. What followed wasn't just a mistake, it was a tragedy of arrogance when the storm came. Water was everywhere, crawling through living rooms, swallowing gardens, turning driveways into shallow ponds. People shouted over the roar of rain, carrying boxes, pets, whatever they could save. The air smelled like wet earth and diesel. And in the middle of it all, Devin Rucker stood barefoot in his flooded yard, staring at the concrete wall that had caused it all, the same wall the homeowners association swore would beautify the neighborhood. Now it was a man-made disaster that turned 27 homes into swamps. Reporters arrived before the county trucks did, panning over ruined furniture and crying families. A drenched woman yelled at the cameras, "We told them this would happen," and just like that, the story stopped being about property damage. It became a story about arrogance, negligence, and what happens when pride tries to rewrite nature. Devin didn't say much that day. He just stood there, soaked to the bone, watching the current drag his lawn chairs away. He had warned them, sent emails, maps, and photos. Still, they laughed it off. The same people who once told him the creek was just a ditch. But before the flood, before the shouting, before the cameras, there had been peace. The kind you don't realize you have until it's gone. The creek wasn't big, but it was alive. You could hear it trickling on quiet mornings, smell the grass after rain, see children toss pebbles into the water while parents chatted nearby. Devin kept it clear year-round, not for money, but because he cared. He said it kept the neighborhood breathing. Norma from 3 doors down used to bring him iced tea while he worked. Eddie, the retired mechanic, helped him build a small wooden bridge for the kids. That little creek connected them all until Margot Leary moved in. Margot had a way of turning everything into a meeting, polished, confident, obsessed with order. Within months of becoming HOA president, she flooded the community with letters about fences, lawns, and paint colors. And when she saw the creek behind Devin's yard, she called it an eyesore. Devin laughed when he first heard it. An eyesore? It's a creek, not a dump. But Margot wasn't joking. She held a vote, pushed her narrative, and convinced the board that the creek was attracting mosquitoes and lowering property values. Devin tried to explain that it was a natural drainage route, that blocking it would backfire. But she was already set on the outcome. On the morning they brought in the construction trucks, Devin rushed outside in disbelief. "You can't just fill that in," he shouted. The foreman barely looked up. "We got approval from the board." He spent days fighting it, sending maps, warnings, emails. The HOA's final response was smug and short. "We appreciate your concern, Mr. Rucker. The area is non-essential drainage. This improvement will enhance community value." Now, standing in the flood that destroyed their homes, those words echoed in his mind. Non-essential drainage. Daughter's neighbors bailed out garages with buckets and children cried over lost toys. Devin whispered to himself. They thought they could bury nature. He didn't know it yet, but that storm wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Subscribe to Drama Lady Files. Margot said he was trying to make her look bad. Devin sighed. She was doing a fine job of that herself. Still, he didn't stop. He began calling local offices, asking about drainage laws, permits, and flood risks. A hydrologist from the county told him that if they poured concrete without redirecting flow, the water would find its way back, maybe into people's homes. That single line stuck in his head. Water always finds its way back. He printed those words, highlighted them, and posted them on his fridge as a reminder. Meanwhile, Margot was preparing for her victory. Flyers went out about the community improvement project, complete with mock-up photos of clean paved paths and landscaped greenery. People smiled again, ready for change, not realizing what kind of change was coming. But Devin could feel it, like pressure building behind a dam, silent but unstoppable, because once that first truck arrived, there would be no turning back. The trucks came early, too early for a Saturday morning. Devin was sipping his first cup of coffee when the sound of diesel engines broke the stillness. He stepped outside in his slippers and saw a convoy rolling down Oakshire Lane, flatbeds carrying rebar, cement mixers, and stacks of wooden forms. Workers in neon vests stepped out, stretching and laughing, completely unaware of what they were about to do. Devin felt his stomach twist. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered, setting his mug on the porch railing. The HOA had ignored every warning, every email. They were really doing it. He walked toward the noise, phone already in hand, recording. "Hey," he called to one of the workers, "what's this for?" The man checked his clipboard. "Creek channel fill," he said casually. "We're sealing off the drainage line. Orders from the HOA board." Devin blinked. "You mean you're filling it completely?" The worker shrugged. "Just following instructions, sir." By now a few neighbors had wandered out in robes and slippers, drawn by the commotion. Margot appeared from her driveway, dressed like she'd been waiting for this day, khakis pressed, hair pinned, clipboard tucked under her arm. "Morning, everyone," she called cheerfully. "Big day for Oakshire Meadows. This is the start of our beautification project." Devin approached her, trying to keep his voice steady. "Margot, you don't have a permit. I've already confirmed it with the county." You can't alter a drainage path without clearance. She smiled like someone indulging a stubborn child. We're not altering it, we're improving it. The contractor assured me the concrete will help manage runoff. Manage? Devin snapped. You're blocking it. Water doesn't just vanish when you pour cement on it. Margot, it'll back up into people's yards. A few neighbors murmured, uneasy now. Margot lifted her clipboard. We've already taken a vote. You lost. Let's not make a scene. Devin stared at her for a long second, then said quietly, you think a vote changes physics? Her expression didn't falter, but her jaw tightened slightly. Mr. Rucker, please step aside and let the professionals do their work. He didn't move. The foreman walked up, clearly uncomfortable. Sir, we're on a tight schedule. I can't delay my crew. Devin turned his phone so the camera faced him and said clearly, this is unauthorized construction on a public drainage route. I've warned you in writing and in person. You go through with this, I'll report it. The foreman glanced at Margot. She waved her hand dismissively. Do your job, she said. And they did by noon. The first layers of concrete were poured. The sound of the mixer echoed across the neighborhood, that steady churn, that wet slap of cement hitting earth. Devin stood there watching as gray slurry smothered the creek he tended for years. The smell was sharp, almost metallic. If he could feel the ground trembling under the machinery. Norma walked up beside him, her voice low. They really did it. Yeah, he said softly. They just buried a living thing. For hours, he filmed, documenting every stage. Workers in hard hats tamping down soil, smoothing wet concrete with trowels, laughing about weekend plans. He wanted every second on record. Maybe someday, when the water came, they'd remember this sound, the sound of arrogance hardening. By the time the last truck pulled away, the creek was gone, replaced by a narrow gray channel that glistened under the afternoon sun. It looked artificial, lifeless. Even the birds seemed confused, circling overhead before flying off toward the woods. That evening, Devin sat on his porch with Norma and Eddie, the three of them staring in silence. Eddie broke it first. It looks clean, I'll give her that. But man, that don't look right. It's not, Devin replied. You block water, it finds another path. Always does. He sent his footage to the county that night, attaching timestamps and his correspondence with the HOA. His email ended with one line. This will cause flooding. Please intervene before it's too late. 2 days later, he got an automated response. Your complaint has been received and will be reviewed. Weeks went by. Nothing happened. Margot strutted around like she'd saved the neighborhood. She even held a ribbon-cutting ceremony for her community restoration project. Balloons, refreshments, and a banner that read Oakshire Creek Renewal. Devin didn't attend. He watched from his porch as families posed for pictures beside the concrete channel, smiling like it was a new park. Norma shook her head. They're celebrating a time bomb. Yeah, Devin said quietly. They just don't hear it ticking yet. He noticed small things in the following weeks. Puddles lasting longer after rain. A faint smell of mildew near the lower yards. The soil wasn't draining the same way, but nobody wanted to talk about it. Not until one night in mid-August when thunder rolled over Wilmington and the first drops began to fall heavier than anyone expected. But by then, the damage was done. For a few weeks, everything looked normal. The new concrete channel gleamed in the sunlight, and Margot Leary walked the neighborhood like a mayor inspecting her victory. She even wrote a post for the community newsletter titled, A Fresh Look for Oakshire Meadows. Residents praised her. They liked the way things looked. Neat, uniform, controlled. No more tall grass. No more buzzing insects. No more mess. Devin kept quiet, though inside he was boiling. He still walked by the sealed creek every day, camera in hand, taking notes. He noticed things others didn't. A faint crack forming where the concrete met the soil. Small puddles that lingered for days after rain. Patches of grass turning yellow. The air even smelled different, damp and stale. Nature was reacting, but no one wanted to admit it. Let it go, Dev, Norma said one afternoon, as they sat on her porch. They won't listen until they see it with their own eyes. He shook his head. By then, it'll be too late. You can't stop water. You can only guide it. They think they're in charge, but they're not. Norma handed him a glass of iced tea. Sometimes people need to feel the consequence to learn the lesson. He sighed and looked toward the sky. The air had grown heavier lately, sticky, humid, the kind of heat that promised a storm. That weekend, a few kids played basketball near the cul-de-sac when their ball bounced into the concrete channel. One of them climbed down to get it. It's all dry, he yelled, slapping the ground. It feels weird, like a parking lot. Devin watched from his porch, uneasy. Tell your folks to keep you out of there, he called. The boy nodded and ran back to his friends. But Devin knew that surface wouldn't stay dry for long. He spent the next few days reviewing his files, every email, every photo, every time. The folder on his computer was labeled HOA Creek Violation. He wasn't planning to sue anyone. He just wanted the record straight when things went wrong. The county still hadn't replied beyond the automated message. He called again, waited on hold for 40 minutes, then finally reached a clerk named Peter Lang. Mr. Rucker. Yes, we've seen your file, Peter said, sounding tired. But there's a backlog of environmental cases. Unless there's immediate danger, It'll take time. Devin rubbed his forehead. So you're telling me they can block a drainage system and we just wait for immediate danger? I understand your frustration, Peter replied, but there are procedures. We'll notify you if an inspection is scheduled. Devin hung up without another word. Procedures. That's what people said when they didn't want to take responsibility. Later that evening, Margot stopped by his property. She stood at the edge of his yard, hands on hips, voice calm but sharp. Devin, I'd appreciate it if you stopped spreading false information about the creek project. He looked at her, arms crossed. You mean facts? Because the last time I checked, flooding doesn't care about HOA rules. She gave a tight smile. You're stirring fear. People are anxious enough. They should be, he said. You buried a waterway. Margot's smile dropped. We improved our neighborhood, Mr. Rucker. Some people just can't stand change. She turned and walked off before he could reply. That night, Devin recorded a short video for himself, a personal log. He sat at his kitchen table, talking straight to the camera. It's July 29th. The creek's been filled for 3 weeks. Rain's been light, but the ground's not drying. If the storm that's coming hits us full on, Oakshire's going under. I'm saving this clip because when it happens, they'll say no one warned them. He closed the laptop, then stared out the window. The sky had that strange golden tint that comes before summer storms. Beautiful, but tense. Dot in the distance, thunder grumbled. The next few days were quiet but restless. People carried on washing cars, mowing lawns, planning barbecues. Margot even hosted a garden tour.